So I'm gonna start with this pretty complex model that I have. It's just a model of, I think I talked about it last class. It's a model of some wooden joists. It's an existing structure. I think it's in Spain. I'm gonna copy it over so I don't change things. An easy way to copy, you can hold on a Windows it's Alt, on a Mac I think it's Option, and you can just drag, and that'll just make a copy. I just drag it to one side, and then every copy from here, I will do it a certain distance, because I was just trying to get it away from that. Alright, sweet. Oh, and I'm going to delete these clipping planes. So I'm going to do this in plan and section, and elevation, so first I'm just going to go to my top view, I'm going to set view, top, blah, blah. Yes, zoom centered. I always have my model exactly in the center of my field of view, and I do make 2D. I'm not going to have hidden lines clicked. I maintain source layers, and I do a viewport rectangle. I don't want to click anything else, and then when I'm making a make 2D, I always name it. So I'm going to name this one plan 01, or a roof plan. Let's do roof plan. Roof plan. Just because then when I do that, you can see after it makes 2D, all of the layers that I just made are now under this little drop down that says roof plan on my layers window, and that makes it super easy for me to just like figure out what I'm looking at, you know? And so I'm actually going to make the elevation as well right now. So, go over here, go to the elevation, zoom selected, and then I'm going to say make 2D. Make 2D. I'm going to keep all the same settings, and then instead of naming it roof plan, I'm going to name it elevation 01. And I'm going to push OK. And then after this makes it, then now you can see that I have a layer for both my elevation make 2D and my roof plan make 2D. So it's just a really easy way of kind of making sure that all of your, sorry, you don't have zoom extents?
You type in extents.
Oh, and then zoom selected.
Yeah, ZS is zoom selected. ZE is zoom extents. Normally, I messed up because when I made 2D, so you can, oops.
I think it's okay because you can just select the objects on your 2D.
Yeah, I can go, so I can see how I made 2D and I just made them on top of each other, and now it would be a shit show if I tried to click all these tiny little lines and move them. So what I can do is I can go to my roof plan, I can right click, and then I can select objects on that. You might have to do the drop, down because it's, anyway, select objects, and so this is going to be my roof plan. I organize my layers. I have something I call graphic standards. I have a heavy layer, a medium layer, a light layer, a dash layer. Honestly, any of the graphic standards that I think I'm going to need in that drawing, I will make a little drop down on my layers and label them right here. I'll extend this. And you can see I even have something called annotation 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have all of the exterior lines just be a heavy weight for now, because this structure isn't necessarily something that since it's so permeable, I'm just trying to like outline the outside. So what I did right there is I just typed curve boolean, and I was able to select all of the lines I had and make an outline of my entire drawing. And I'm going to make this, I'm going to set this onto the heavy line. I tend to work in blues. I don't even think I selected that. Oh, I did. I tend to work in blues. I don't know. I just think that the gradient is really helpful for me to see. I'm going to select all my other lines and put them on light right now. And then I'm going to unlock this guy. And you can kind of see it already starts to be more legible. If I had windows, I could even make some of these. I'm going to do another curve boolean. Curve boolean. And then I can kind of like click inside if I wanted these guys to be a heavier line weight, because all my interior lines are always going to be like the lightest line, like, and then your like outside of a window will be medium, and then like outside of the building would be a lot heavier. Does that make sense? Or like what you're cutting through is going to be the heaviest line, medium is going to be, I don't know, secondary walls, window sills, and then like the lightest line would be like if I had a sink in the room and I drew the sink. So I'm just going to do this as an example. I'm going to put these on medium. And so what happens is when I'm done drawing, when I'm done editing the lines that I made, none of my lines should be on these Make 2D layers anymore. They should all be in my graphic standards. So I'll do the same thing for this guy. And I'll do curve boolean. I like to keep the viewport rectangle because then I usually save the views that I make 2D in because then when we get to adding shadows and everything, it'll line up super well. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to put my outline on heavy.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
So for your graphic standards, can you just reference what line weights you have for each?
Yeah, I don't edit any line weights in Rhino. I think Emily edits line weights in Rhino. I actually take everything to Illustrator, and then when I get into Illustrator, all the layers you're going to export are going to be the same line weights, like the same layers. And so I just I have like a graphic standard that I put into each Illustrator file, and I can literally just eyedrop. Like I'm in Illustrator for like 2 seconds compared to when I'm in Rhino. So I'm actually even just going to take a drawing that I did yesterday because I feel like this one makes more sense to what you guys are doing. And I'm going to show you how to export it into Illustrator real quick. So pretend I just spent a ton of time and I edited all these lines and they're super nice and they're all in this right line weight. Wow, they're so pretty. So I'm going to select the drawings I'm trying to take into Illustrator and I'm going to go into File, I think, Export Selected, and then when I do this drop down, I'm going to make sure I select AI, which is Adobe Illustrator. I don't know where you save things, so.
You can just do it in the desktop for now.
Sweet. You want to be saving everything on your computer into like a folder that goes into this class so that all your files are like all nice. I used to even do it by date. I would save I'd have a folder that had the date of the day I was working on things, and everything I was working on that day would save to that folder. And so you keep really organized. Like one of the most important things in architecture school is just like organized workflow. And that's something we're just going to keep hounding you guys on time and time again. So I'm going to call this example 1 ISO, because this is an isometric drawing. And I'm going to push save. And then you'll see that when you're saving to Illustrator, you're going to get this dialog box. You always want to preserve your model scale. This is how you make sure you have the same scale you were working in Rhino in Illustrator, and then make sure that all your drawings are accurate and they all match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 1 foot equals 1/4 inch. And then, yeah, order layers. All this looks great. Cool. I'm going to push OK. Then it's going to save to the desktop, which, wow.
It's hiding.
It's hiding. And then I'm going to go and I'm just going to open this guy in Illustrator. And I'll do a quick little Illustrator tutorial and kind of show you how you're going to set up your document. Yeah. It'll be fast.
That's fine. Just
Continue. Because I'm actually not really using anything. So, I don't know. Can I zoom out?
control it all.
Yeah, cool. So as you can see, my drawing came in super small in Illustrator, and that's because this artboard is probably pretty massive. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the artboard size to like what I'm working with. We're working in 15 by 15 inches, so I'm going to change my units to inches. I'm going to say edit artboards. And see, this artboard is 120 inches by 120 inches. It's massive. We will not be able to plot that. So I'm going to change this 15 by 15. Push enter. Oh, and look, that feels right. This feels a little bit more accurate. And then I'm just going to drag all of the drawing I had, and I'm going to put it on this guy. And you can see, sorry, I'm so not used to doing that. Control Z. I'm just going to use Z because I don't know. And you can see this doesn't fit on the artboard because I wasn't actually testing this for this class, but I'll just move it over for now. And so in Illustrator, is everybody familiar a little bit with Illustrator? Is anybody new to Illustrator completely? Heck yeah. Okay, sweet. So Illustrator is great. Illustrator works in vectors, kind of similar to Rhino. It's not in pixels. So pretty much when you scale something, it'll stay the same. Whereas if you scale something in Photoshop, it get all pixely and grainy. So over here on the right side, you can see my layers. You can see those up there. So those are all the layers I had selected in Rhino. They very conveniently just go straight to Illustrator. It's amazing. It's awesome. We love that. So, and since I labeled them all, and I work in shades of blue, so it's like my heavy line is like my darkest blue, it's really easy for me to see which line should be which line weight. So I go through and I literally click. I'm going to click on the heavy layer. This little circle on the side selects everything on that layer. And then it'll kind of tell me where it is. It should. Oh, okay, there it's going now. So like mid, light, dashed, whatever. I have all these, and you can see that the box surrounds what I'm selecting. What I do to change line weights is I will select a layer, and then I'll go down to this properties panel, and I will change the stroke, the color, all that stuff. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to change it black, because we're just working in black and white drawings right now. So I'm going to change all the line weights to black, and you can kind of see that that makes it super messy. Like, I would not want to submit this drawing to my professors. So what I'm going to go do is change the line weights of the layers. So my line weight labeled light, I'm going to change this to 0.25. And as you go through school, you'll kind of get like a standard of line weights that you use. I usually go from 0.15 for like stairs or something super light, all the way up to like maybe 1.25 if my drawing is like massive and I'm trying to draw the ground line through a section. So I think I have mid selected, so I'm going to call that 0.75. No, I'm going to call it 0.5. And then heavy line, I don't even know if I copied that one in here. So something important to note, how do you change dash lines in Illustrator? Say I wanted this line to be dashed. I would select, like I have a dash layer, I think. I would select that layer, and then down where you see the stroke, I will click on the word stroke, and it'll give me options to like turn it on into a dash line. It says 12-point font for the dash, 12 for the gap right now, and I think that's kind of way too big. So I'm actually going to do it as 2 and 2. That might be too small. Let's do 3 and 3. 3 and 3. And then it looks pretty nice. I'm going to adjust these lines because I changed them when I brought them into Rhino. So I'm just going to click on, drag them to the right length. You shouldn't have to do too much line editing in Illustrator at all, because we did all that in Rhino beforehand. Yeah. I'm going to turn off my... Oh, yeah?
Can you go over what settings you did for the heavy, medium, and light?
Yeah, for sure. Right now, heavy is 1. I actually locked my heavy layer when I was exporting from Rhino, so I didn't end up exporting it. It would have just been like an outline. Heavy is 1, mid is 0.5, and light is 0.25. My dashed will be like a 0.5 as well, but then it'll be a dash line. And we can send you guys, well, on the template we send you, we'll send you like a standard line weights that we kind of expect you guys to, and some dash line options for you to like, you can just eyedrop. If I wanted to eyedrop something, if I was like, wow, I wish this rectangle was dashed, and I was like, but I want it to be that dashed, and I don't want to have to go in and do all those settings again, I can click on the rectangle, I can click on this eyedrop tool, and I can click on this dash line, and that'll change that rectangle to match all those other lines, which is super helpful if you can't remember exactly the settings that you did. And but in general, you don't really want your viewport rectangles in the file because it'll kind of make them pretty messy because you just don't need them. So I usually turn them off. You do want to use them when you're lining up shadows. So say I wanted to put like an Arctic screenshot in it, or just an Arctic view, I could go back to my Rhino, and then I went in and I saved the model, the views that I took for that drawing, and I can take that rendering and kind of put it behind the line work, if that makes sense. So what I'll show you how to save a view. So I'm gonna go to my view, I'm gonna go to set view, and then at the very bottom there's something called named views. You can also type named views, and you see how it opens up this dialog of like my named views. This is another model I have in the same Rhino, so I'm gonna also save this one. So I'm gonna go up to this little plus sign next to the camera. And I'm going to save this as a new view. And so this would be like my model 2 ISO. And I push OK. And the reason we do that is because then when you're in your name views, I could just double click and get straight back to this view that you're looking at in Illustrator. And then if I want, this is just empty Rhino. And then if I wanted to, like, I don't know, change my view to ray traced. We'll see if, yeah, I could take this view and put it behind. I'll just show you how to do that. I'm going to hide these curves, so I'm going to say select curve, and I'm going to do hide. Hide. It'll take a second because I'm in ray traced. Computers don't love ray traced all the time. Oop, it didn't even. Beautiful. And I'm actually going to hide this guy too. These are clipping planes. This is what we'll go over when we're talking more about sections. I'm going to go down to view. I'm going to do capture. I'm going to say to file. And then it's showing me the view that I made in 2D, and I'm going to be able to save just like, instead of taking a screenshot of my screen, which is very nice, but you don't necessarily always get the same aspect ratio, this will kind of let me save it to the scale that I'm working in and like save it to exact dimensions of a board and all that stuff. I'm going to do transparent background. You can also do white, doesn't really matter. I'm going to do the resolution of the viewport. And you see how I kind of took everything I didn't want to see in this rendered view out of the picture before doing this, because it's like taking a screenshot where if there's like, if your mouse is, not your mouse, but if you had like something selected, it would show the selected piece in like yellow or something in the shot. You like want to make sure your screen is like clear and clean before you're doing this. And I'm going to say, okay. And I'm going to also do it to the desktop just for ease of, and I'm going to name it render. I'm not taking the time to like render this or do anything fancy with it, so the odds that it has graininess is high. So I'm going to go into Illustrator, make a new layer. I'm going to rename this layer render, and then I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to hit Place. And then I should go to the desktop, and I don't know where she is.
Should be there.
Oh, there she is. Saw it. And I'm gonna hit place. And then when I place it in here, it will be bigger than the model that I have, but since I have this viewport rectangle, I can line it up with this rectangle and scale it down to that size. So I'm gonna zoom out. Sorry. And quick thing to toggle in zoom is I hit Z, she does Control 0.
Control 0 just puts the artboard to fill up your screen space. You can be pretty exact with
I'm pretty sure, do you remember how to line it up to that?
so what I would do is you can kind of wait for Illustrator to use these pink lines and snap to something. All is the zoom, I think. But one thing that I like to use a lot in Illustrator is the dimensions tab over here. And so you can also see them up here. But I have a dimension for the width of an object and the height of an object. And so I'm just going to copy the width and then constrain the width and height proportions together so it looks like two little links holding on to each other. And then when I click the object that I would like to scale, I'm going to copy the width, and then that should come in. Oh, but I think because it's a PNG.
Oh, it's scaled weird.
Yeah, okay, so the way...
You might have to do it to the height of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you always want to save it as a PNG?
It's helpful.
Yeah.
The only...
Oh, look how beautiful and rendered that is now. Wow! Then that's how you would put a rendering behind. And that's kind of, we're not going to be doing renderings behind these objects, but we kind of wanted to just show you guys this because you're probably going to use it in your studio projects. So don't put renderings in this mediations file, but it's helpful to know.
But, here we go. Shadows. We are doing shadows. and they're not going to be rendered in the end, but they will be drawn, and they probably should be based on like a simulation of shadow, right? So, one thing that I did without saying it is if you click an image or really anything in Illustrator, there are these little squares that kind of are the bounds of the object. And if I press Shift, it allows me to scale something proportionally. If I don't press Shift, it scales in whatever direction I'm pulling those tabs in.
So always hold shift.
Yeah. Okay, this is beautiful. And we're back. So I have my ghost app is not on. Where is it? Oh no. Do you remember how to turn the
Your windows.
gumball?
Yeah, you can just hit gumball and turn it on. Oh.
Cool.
If your gumball turns off, you can type gumball and turn it on.
Yeah. Okay. So I do this a little differently than Hannah, but it's fine. So I'm going back to my elevation view and shaded and ZS, and maybe I want to get this out of the picture as much as I can. Something that I use a lot is called Legacy Rhino Render, and it's just one of the like preloaded rendering capability, like softwares you have in Rhino. And so to get to that, there's a little blue ball that's kind of shiny. It might be in your side tab, it might be up here, you might have to go to a window. Maybe it's toolbars or something.
You can type render.
Yeah. Maybe render. And that uses whatever render.
It'll use Legacy until we have V-Ray installed.
Yeah. But anyway, does anybody not see the little shiny blue ball that allows them to go to renders?
Is V-Ray like the main render software you guys use?
No.
What's the main render software you use?
I
Lots.
wouldn't say there's one main one. We use V-Ray, Enscape,
Legacy Render, D5, Lumion.
Stable Diffusion, Automatic 1111.
Gotcha. And then, okay, I'll get into that.
Yeah. But for this, we really just need some clean shadows, so I like Legacy Rhino Render. I pressed Legacy Rhino Render, and I'm just going to make sure this aspect ratio is a little bit small, so I'm going to change it to, where's 1080? You see it?
1080 by 1920.
There we go.
Your screens, the standard screen size is 1080 by 1920. So if you render something in that size, it shouldn't look crazy if you end up blowing it up a little bit or shrinking it.
Yeah. You can play with the quality. I would do low quality if I'm doing a test render, and then bump up the quality as I get the render closer to what I want, so that it's better. But for now, I'll do a draft quality. And if I go to maybe rendered, there's sun settings down under the lighting tab. And if I turn on the manual control for sun, it kind of allows me to shift around where the sun will be, north, south, east, or west, relative to how my object is in Rhino space. And I can also change the height of the sun.
Another way to get to this tab is to type sun.
Yeah. You can always just type things in Rhino, and it usually works. So I'm going to just try rendering this, and we'll see what happens. Oh, look at that.
Oh, she's pretty.
It's a render. And this is the draft quality, and it's pretty good, honestly. So I'm just going to save that, because it's good enough. Filing. And that's good. Save. Cool. Now Now, going back to plan. Isolate my drawn, cleaned up drawing. To bring a picture in, use the command picture. And I'm going to go to my downloads, desktop. And if you use a viewport boundary, you'd be able to snap to the viewport exactly. I just kind of eyeball it.
The one-time eyeballing is okay.
Yeah.
Shadows. So pretty much what we're doing is we're making a rendering of the shadows. We're taking that rendering, we're saving it. We're putting the picture of that rendering behind the line work, and then we're going to trace the shadows.
Yeah.
And then manually put the shadows in Illustrator as hatches.
Yes. Okay. So on a new layer, I have this in, and I want to change this object to, I have an images layer, but I have it locked. So if I try to click my image, it doesn't allow me to. But if I unlock the layer, of course, I can click the image. And if I don't want to see it, I can just turn it off. Using something like a thin line, I'm going to trace an approximation of the outline of one of the shadows, and then I'll just copy this line around so that I have a similar angle wherever that line occurs, and it's just here. I'll do another line.
Because how shadows work is it's based on the sun, so it should, all of the angles that will be from like that direction should have the exact same angle. So you don't want to be just like drawing crazy random lines, because then all your shadows will be at different angles and it won't look real.
Yeah. Okay, there's another one. And I'm being pretty loose. I don't need the lines to align with the existing things I already have. Cool. If I turn my image off and go to shaded mode, now I have lines that if I select and do trim, which you guys should have been using for your studio project.
You get like a really clean outline of where the shadows in that rendering were.
Yeah.
So this is a really clean way of making a drawing with shadows that aren't rendered. They're drawn.
Now, for the fun part. If I hatch, we'll see what happens. Hatch is kind of weird, and it just shows a place to hatch. So I'm just going to select a portion of my drawing, use the command hatch, and click inside. And when I press enter, I could do a solid, hatch, line work. For now, I'll just do solids. But I will say, in Rhino, you actually have a lot of control over what you do with hatches. The only problem is when you export hatches from Rhino into Illustrator, if they're made up of lines, they're going to come in as individual lines into Illustrator. And so
It'll crash your computer.
it'll make it a really, heavy thing. So sometimes I just work with solids, and other times I do work with straight line work. If I want to adjust the hatch, right now the hatch pattern is solid in my properties panel, but I can change it to lines. I can scale the hatch up and down. Maybe I would like the hatch to be at a 45-degree angle so I can rotate it. And this is some of the work I was doing when I was making that drawing originally, was like playing with the orientation of the lines of the hatch, whether that be in Rhino or in Illustrator. Cool.
You should also be able to select all and do by boundary, hatch by boundary.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm down. Okay. Let's delete these.
So you have to delete that, and then select all.
All right.
Hatch.
New way of doing this. Hatch.
And then instead of, just hatch. And then when this dialog comes in, where's the dialog that pops up? Yeah, you should just be able to do it by boundary, so you can click when you're hatching. I think it's a small one, yeah. Cool. And then you can do all your shadows at once.
Okay. Now if I think if I go to print preview, it gives me like a general idea of how the thing will look. Any questions here? Yes.
Yeah.
Why not do, why, okay, you guys are you guys doing it in Rhino, all the hatching and outlining for the purpose of this class, or? Because you could just put the shaded, the rendered version, or the shaded version of Illustrator, fix those outlines, no?
You could, but Rhino is a lot more accurate because when you do like when Emily was tracing those like angles, you know, and she could just really easily like copy and paste it and click it to that corner. You can't, it won't, it's a lot harder to do that in Illustrator because Illustrator doesn't,
Yeah.
it's super manual.
And Illustrator, although they like are saying they're gonna start having dimensional accuracy and stuff, I don't know.
When
Who
that's
knows?
gonna happen.
The nice thing about Rhino is I think these little bars down here, which are my O snaps and object selection filters. The object selection filters allow me to, like, let's say I just want to select curves and not hatches. I can press Command and just click my curves, and now it only selects curves. Or if I only want to select the hatches and edit all of those, you know, I have a lot of control that way, but I can also like make sure I snap to the center or snap to the the perpendicular of a line. So I think you can just have so much more control over what you're doing, and as your thing evolves, when your professors are like change this, change this, change this, change this, you know, you want to be able to like really
Do it
quickly,
really fast.
yeah,
That's like your selection points that you were saying.
yeah,
How do you get
exactly.
that tab up? Is that big enough?
Okay, so this one should be selection filter. And you can show or hide. So if I hide this, it makes my selection filter go away. And I'm going to press Enter to redo a command. If I show, then now I have something that I can try. It's been difficult recently for
And pin to her taskbar.
yeah. And
And
then-
another way to do this is you can, instead of like having the filters are really fast way to do it, but if you aren't like you don't think in that way, you can also just type SEL, which is short for select, and then CRV. So like select curve, you can select hatch. You can select open poly surface, which is something that's super nice for when you're trying to figure out what is broken in your Rhino. You can select closed poly surface. You can pretty much filter and just type SEL and then anything in Rhino, and you can select that specific type of object.
cell curves. Now they're all selected.
Like patch. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, the other thing that we want to consider, I'm going to do a make 2D without hidden lines of a plan, and then bring it around. So in general, of course, you all want to have a position, an argument for how you're orienting your object in space, how they're aligned to each other. If we go over to the examples that Miroslava was showing you guys, these are aligned edge extent to extent. And Le Corbusier decided to orient the shadows so that they would meet at some point. So these shadows are not actually being cast in the same direction necessarily, but in the drawing it works, and he can like reveal something about the object based on where the shadow is placed. Something else to consider with your shadows is it's not just on the object, and it's in the environment around the object, and that's something that's new for this class this year. Last year we didn't really have this like exciting conversation about shadow until we got to renderings, but in this instance the object is placed inside of some sort of casing or something, and it starts to tell you more about the reality of what we're looking at.
It's like communicating stuff that's happening around the object without modeling it necessarily or like showing it in the drawing.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, these can be aligned so that the plan orientation makes sense with the elevation, but I could also reorient my plan some other way or put it off to the side and start to talk about something else with the relationship between the plan and the elevation. Or I can take both of my objects and orient them differently for some reason. And I can start to draw lines to show connections between things that relate to each other, and maybe these are a dash. So this starts to get into the like very active part of like what's your part in this drawing.
So you guys will be drawing these lines on your drawings for Tuesday.
Yeah.
Instruction lines that kind of show where windows line up, or sorry, not windows since the sculpture, where the plan and the elevation line up.
And finally, one other thing that's been added to this class this year is we're trying to have a very active conversation about annotation and where, like, what its place is in drawing. And so, like, just so you guys know, to create text in Illustrator, for example, you can just use the text tab and do something like A relates to A, and wow, what happened
She's
there?
onto something right here.
Yeah.
And just adding like that little letter makes the drawings, the communication of the drawings so much more clear. Like you can be like, oh my god, I get it now. Like that side drawing is like a section through where that little line is drawn.
Yeah.
And it's all like about communicating the drawing to people. It's really what this class is about.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just show you guys. When I was playing around with this, I decided that my environment should be a dome or like a carved out dome situation. And so the ground is curved and the background is spherical. And then I just drew out a surface of a tree and then projected the shadow of the tree onto my object, which I think can be viewed in like, if I change my sun around in the ray trace mode, at some point the tree's shadow,
Hits the building.
yeah,
Oh, see.
see?
And that's just one way that Emily made her drawing like a lot more interesting. Just like putting her object into an environment. She didn't necessarily draw the environment, like you never saw that tree in the drawing and you never saw that sphere in the drawing. But by placing these objects and then using the shadows as a communicative tool, she was able to portray something you weren't necessarily expecting.